Hi everyone, this is Sam with Wine News in 5. Before I dive into global news, I have some site news. Every year, JancesRobinson.com hosts a wine writing competition, which anyone can enter. You don't have to be a member. The best submissions will be published on the site, and prizes will be awarded based on both a reader's poll and our own judges' views. This year, we've chosen a theme that I think leaves more room for creativity than any past competition. The theme is a great pairing, and it encompasses all non-food pairings: wine and music, architecture, a painting, a color, a film, television, a book, or even a physical setting. We're expecting quite a few entries and have capped the word count at 1,000 words. The submission deadline is June 22nd. We'll be announcing the prizes as well as a spectacular guest judge who I cannot wait to ask you to raise your glass to very soon. If you're interested in entering the competition, please go to JancesRobinson.com for full submission instructions. And on the subject of competitions, the 67 Pall Mall Global Wine Communicator Awards announced their long lists this week. We're extremely proud to have many of our writers listed, and we urge you to check out everyone who made the cut. There are so many talented communicators to follow. And now on to global news. Today I'll discuss the 2024 vintage declarations for port, St. Supéry's acquisition of Rudd, Caterpillar's acquisition of Monarch tractors, a frost on the US East Coast, updated information on the frost in Champagne, Systembolaget, Sweden's alcohol monopoly, updating their buying criteria to include analysis of a wine's carbon footprint, and the Liberty Justice Center's creation of an online platform to help US businesses recover unlawfully collected tariffs. First up, 2024 port declarations. While plenty of ruby, white, tawny, and late bottled vintage ports are produced every year, true vintage port is produced only in the best years, and it generally takes producers around 14 to 16 months following a vintage to be certain that the quality of wine they produced is good enough to declare a vintage port. Then they submit the wine to the IVDP to see if it meets the Institute's standards. Finally, once the IVDP has given its approval, the wines are announced to the public. Although a handful of port houses have declared vintages in the past few years, there was no clear consensus between houses. The last vintage to have been widely declared was 2017. Thus, there's been quite a bit of excitement over what looks to be a superb and widely declared 2024 vintage. Thus far, Symington Family Estates has declared a number of vintage bottlings, including Coburn's, Dow's, Wares, and Graham's. The Fladgate Partnership has declared Croft, Fonseca, Taylor's, and Taylor's Sentinels. Kopke has declared Burmester and Kopke. Sogrape has declared Ferrera and Sandeman. Ramos Pinto declared both their standard vintage and their Quinta de Ervalmoira. Real Compañía Velia declared their standard vintage and Delaforce. And Churchill, Maynard, Newport, Posas, Quevedo, and Quinta de la Rosa have all declared. If you'd like to keep up with the declarations, the Port Forum does an excellent job of tracking the announcements. Technically speaking, announcements won't finish until September. The Port Wine Brotherhood and the IVDP will wait until then to announce whether enough producers declared for the vintage to be considered a classic vintage year. But I think it would be fair to make some assumptions. On to St. Supéry's acquisition of Rudd. St. Supéry, an estate in Napa Valley, which is owned by the French fashion house Chanel, announced on April 13th that it had acquired Rudd Estate in Oakville, Napa Valley. The sale includes the 65-acre, 26-hectare estate property, all stock, and both the Rudd brand and the Crossroads by Rudd entry-level brand. Chanel now owns 6 wineries: Bordeaux Chateau Berliquet, Canon, and Rosan Segla, Provence Estate, Domaine de Lille, St. Supéry, and now Rudd. Next, Caterpillar's acquisition of Monarch tractor. In this newscast on February 14th, I reported the closing of the autonomous electric tractor company Monarch. On April 14th, Bloomberg reported that Monarch has been sold to Caterpillar, who have acquired it for the software and electrical systems intellectual property. Monarch was co-founded by Rain Winery owner and operator Carlo Mondavi and sold a large number of tractors to wineries before they shuttered. It's hoped that Caterpillar can finish what Monarch started and provide support to producers who already own tractors. On to a frost on the US East Coast. On April 20th, the east coast of the US was hit by a damaging frost. Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia took the brunt of the impact, with one wine producer in Pennsylvania reporting about 70% losses of primary buds. Next, updated information on the frost in Champagne. The Comté Champagne have updated their estimated losses from frost to 40% of total buds, the highest losses since the devastating frosts in 2003. On to Systembolaget, adding carbon footprint assessments to buying criteria. At the end of March, Sweden's alcohol monopoly became the first major retailer to implement individualized carbon footprint assessments for all products in their stores. The assessment takes into account packaging, production, cultivation, and transportation. While market demand will remain the primary determining factor in the monopoly's buying, they do intend to reward producers who reduce their carbon footprint, and they intend to create tools enabling comparisons between producers' carbon footprints so that customers can use this information to make buying decisions. Finally, the Liberty Justice Center's creation of an online platform. This week, the Liberty Justice Center, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan U.S. law firm, launched TARA, the Tariff Equity Refund Resource for America, to assist small businesses in learning how to reclaim tariffs that were unlawfully collected by the Trump administration. If you are a U.S. winery who has been putting off doing the paperwork for reclamation, I highly recommend checking out this resource. That's all for this episode of the Wine News. I'll see you on May 8th. If you enjoyed this newscast and you'd like to see it continue, please become a member of jancesrobinson.com. And if you have breaking news in your area, please email me at news@jancesrobinson.com. Thanks.